So today we're going to talk about using Edcite to support all of the different ways you can capture student thinking. So we're going to talk about paper-based testing. We'll talk then about rubric scoring and some of the efficient grading tools. So I like to sometimes ground our sessions, and one of the biggest goals of Edcite is to positively impact students through assessments for learning. And at Edcite, we recognize that assessments for learning is not limited to those technology enhanced auto-graded question types. And we want to make sure that we are always empowering teachers to capture student thinking, student learning, student mastery in the many ways that authentically align with that skill. So we're going to cover quite a bit in our short session today. We're going to talk about really two buckets: how we capture student thinking and student understanding, and how do we efficiently grade what we're capturing. So we'll talk about attaching pictures, we'll talk about uploading files, we'll talk about free response, recordings, bubble sheets, and then we'll move into the grading. And we're going to try to save about 5 to 10 minutes at the end for questions. We're also going to have the Edcite team. We've got some members of our team on today's session who can check out the questions coming in and answer in there. Okay, so let's start out with how you can capture student thinking in the wide range of ways on Edcite. So one of the first ways we like to talk about is available on every single question type, and that is students attaching a picture of their work. So this requires no additional setup. This is not a premium feature. This is available to everyone on Edcite. So if you want students doing something on paper or something outside of Edcite, and you want an easy way for them to attach it, you go ahead and just create a question on Edcite, and the student can click the paperclip in the top left corner of their student view and attach a picture. Now, they can also, besides using the webcam, they can also attach a picture from a file. So you'll notice at the bottom here, we've got take picture or upload file. And that's going to give you the option if, let's say, a student takes a picture with their phone and then, airdrops it to their computer or is taking an assignment on their phone, they can just upload the file. Okay, so the next one we wanted to highlight is how students can upload files that they are doing outside of Edcite that maybe I don't want them using that paper clip and attaching the work on any question, but I want them attaching paperwork within an essay, or maybe I want them attaching a PowerPoint or a drawing or something that they're doing outside of an Edcite question type. So that's going to be done with your essay response, which is question type number 100. And so from a teacher creation standpoint, you can choose what type of files you want students to be able to upload. And then the picture below that is the student-facing interface. They click on the paperclip within the essay toolbar, and they can attach any of those file types that the teacher has allowed. These ones are pretty simple for getting responses from students. There's not a big lift in terms of teacher setup. I see some questions coming in about bubble sheets. Thanks for sending those in. We're going to talk about bubble sheets, and we'll definitely get 2 questions at the end as well. So thanks for sending them in there, and I promise we won't ignore them. Now, another option, the last 2 that we looked at, the attach paperclip for any question or attaching a file within the essay response. Both of those have this idea that a student is supposed to bring their outside of Edcite response into Edcite. And sometimes you don't need them to put it into Edcite. Sometimes you just want them to answer it on paper and then turn it into you, and you'll just grade it on Edcite. So one question type that is good for that is our free response, question number 101, because you have this checkbox where you can say allow students to submit without entering an answer. And so I could either make a one question assignment where I'm just making directions. Please create an outline for your essay, or maybe it's they've done a reading. In this example, they did a bunch of readings about the Transcontinental Railroad, and it's culminating with them creating an outline on paper. I want them to be able to answer the other questions on Edcite so I can get that item analysis and technology enhanced questions embedded in there. But my culminating question could be on paper, and in this case I can allow students to still submit it without getting that pop-up that says you haven't answered all questions, and it will still allow you as the teacher to then grade this response within Edcite. You'll notice here in my question editors, I can always set the points to be different than that default 1 point. Okay, and then, this, even though it doesn't really seem like it's bringing something outside of Edcite into Edcite, I wanted to include it because, it's often thought of as beyond the typical way that we see teachers using Edcite, which is having students speak their answers. So sometimes you might find you want to use an audio recorder question type. So there is a question type where you actually have students record with the microphone, as you see here on the screen. There's also an option within the essay tool to allow audio recordings to be input, and that is usually done for accommodations, but it's also just a nice tool to offer if you want to give students more choice on a particular essay question or free response. Okay, we're going to keep going. Just to quickly wrap up, like the other ways people can answer questions that are more open-ended and bring in student thinking on Edcite, I like to just highlight that there are keypads, graphing tools, drawing tools, and additional open response text entry options. And so these are all ways to really provide some more flexible answering options for students that, even though these ones aren't on paper, I think they're just nice to highlight. Okay, so let's say that we don't want to use the attached picture. We don't want to have students uploading their own files, but instead we want to generate bubble sheets or paper graded or paper pencil tests. So it's called the bubble sheet generator. I saw that there was a question in here about how to get rid of some of these boxes. So let me walk through what's going to appear on your bubble sheet. So when you generate a bubble sheet, you're going to have a QR code that is specific to that student that has been assigned that test. So that's why the QR code is going to appear at the bottom, and the QR code is associated with a particular student. You're going to see multiple choice questions, as you'd expect, show up with bubbles. Our free response question is going to show up as a smaller box. And what's nice is that when Edcite scans this bubble sheet in, we capture a picture of what is written in that box and place it into your grading interface. You'll notice this is a pretty small box, so you certainly would not have a student writing an essay in there, but it might be great for a one-word question or some kind of math equation that can fit into that size of box. The other question type that the bubble sheet generator or paper printed version can support is an essay response. So you'll notice here on page 2, we have an essay response box, which gives the student the entire page to write their submission. So let's talk a little bit about how you generate these bubble sheets. So the bubble sheet generator lives on the Manage pop-up. So when I am in my assignment editor and I assign the test to students, I get a Manage Assignment pop-up. It's also accessible from the My Assignments page. I can click on the dots and click on Manage. And that brings up my Manage pop-up where I can view assignment settings. I can print bubble sheets, and I've got all these other options of things that I can do. For this example, obviously, we're going to click Print Bubble Sheets. And then that is going to generate them. So this is a GIF that walks through from an assignment editor after I have assigned a test, and I click Manage Assignment. I can click Print Bubble Sheets. And this was a 1-question essay bubble sheet that I was generating. Once I got a quick scan of it, I can click Print. I can see I've got that full page view for students, and then I could click Print for them. So I'm going to let this run through one more time. A couple things to note. In order for a bubble sheet to be generated, it needs to only include those 3 types of questions that we talked about: multiple choice questions, free response, and or essay. It also needs to be assigned to students to make sure that the system knows which QR codes to print. So as you can see in here, I assign the test. Okay, so I assign it to my classes or I assign it to specific students. And from there, I can now open my Manage Assignment button, and the Print Bubble Sheets option is there. Okay, now in terms of scanning those bubble sheets back in, this is a great transition now to the second half of today's session, which is, instead of talking about how do we capture that student thinking, now we move into how do we easily grade that, upload that bubble sheet. How do I score on a rubric? What are some other grading efficiency tools that I can use? So to upload my bubble sheets, I'm going to do so from my grading interface. So from my grading page, if I have generated bubble sheets, I'm going to see a button at the top of that page with that QR code symbol that says Grade Bubble Sheet. When I click on that, it's going to give me the option to attach a PDF. Once I've selected my PDF, it's going to give me a preview. I can preview any single page within that PDF. So if I have uploaded, seven paper PDFs in my one file, I could use this preview to preview page 3 or page 7, make sure everything's scanned in appropriately. Usually I just preview the first page and fire ahead. So here's my preview of page 1. I would then click Read All Sheets, and it's going to then put that into my grading interface. And so in my grading page, I've got the options then to do any rubric scoring on the parts that had an essay or a free response, or we're going to go over the grid view grading as well. So if I want to grade on a rubric, there is going to be a rubric button within that grading page. And when I click on that rubric, it's going to give me the option to just click on the numbers to select that score. If I want to remember, hey, what does a 2 for purpose and organization mean? Or like, what's that distinction between a 1-point and 2-point answer? You're going to be able to see the text of the rubric upon the hover. So definitely you can hover over it, read that, and then click where you want the score to end up. And then let's talk about the grid view. So if I have not set up a rubric, and if I just want to go in and add a score, the grid view is this really efficient option. So on Edcite, in your grading page, there are 3 ways to enter grades. You can grade by student, which allows you to go through one student's work for every question. Great if you are getting student responses kind of one at a time, and you want to just look at one student holistically, all of their responses. The other option is grade by question, which lets you look at all students' submission for a particular question. As an ELA teacher, I really liked using grade by question for any of my open responses because it allowed me to get into the frame of mind of what is a good answer to this question. And then our third option, which we're highlighting today, is the grid view. So we highlight in yellow under any box anything that still requires teacher grading. So if I don't need to use a rubric and I just want to enter in a score, either because I have a paper copy of the student's response right here, or I'm having the student, speak their answer to me, or for some reason I already have the student's point value and I just need to enter it. The grid view is perfect for that because I just go to grid view, find their row, find the column, type in the answer. If I have had students attach those images, or if in that bubble sheet scan, I had an essay or a free response, I'm going to see that paper clip here where if I click on it, I can see the picture of that student's response, read it, and then type in their score. So in order to see those paper clips, you'd want to checkbox show attachments. Another great efficiency tool, if you have a student that submitted, or let's say they did, 4 questions and then had to leave early for, a track and field meet or a dentist appointment or something, and testing window has closed, I need to score this, you can force submit an essay, and that way you can go in there, it will auto grade whatever the student did submit, and you are able to go in and do any grading that you need to. This is also helpful if you are going to have students do something on paper, whether it's a bubble sheet or it's some other kind of printed packet. If you have an assignment shell, you can just force submit all of the students' responses and then go in and just data entry their scores so you can still get that question by question performance. So I can see, we got, we really struggled with question 2 here. Entering in those scores question by question, even though it takes a bit more time, can definitely give you better data for your analysis, especially if those questions in your assignment shell were tagged to standards. Another, like the opposite of this force submit, which is accessed with the ... here next to Dolores Umbridge's status. The opposite would be the unsubmit button. So, Dolores here was not completed. Technically it was unopened, so maybe she took it on paper. And so I had force submit as an option. If instead I was clicking on Cedric Diggory here, the ... the action would actually be unsubmit. And that's a good way to kick it back to the student if, let's say, they rushed through something, or you want them to go back in and adjust some of their work. So force submit and unsubmit are great tools for grading, and especially efficient grading if you're waiting on students to press submit on something that they have essentially completed. A couple other efficiency tools is in the grid view, you have these ... dots across the header of the table, and those ... dots give you a couple options. So the first option is give full credit. So if I want to give a participation score for all students that have submitted this, I can just click give full credit, and everyone's going to get the 1 out of 1 point value. If I want to quickly toggle over to grade question for question 3, if I click grade question, it's going to just quickly bring me over to that tab with question 3 already open. So it's just a quick shortcut instead of having to click grade by question and then click question 3 and open those responses. Let's see. And then the last thing I want to highlight for this grid view is the filters. So when you are in the grid view, we talked a bit about show attachments. I didn't really talk much about show bonuses, but that is an option if you are allowing bonus points in your grading. But the third option here, show filters, is really helpful for helping you hone in on what do you actually need to grade, or who is still, who do I need to force submit, or who do I need to unsubmit? So I can easily search for a particular student, I can search for a particular status, and I can filter based on the total number of points earned thus far in that graded assignment.